Today I thought I would do a little tutorial on how to color digis in Procreate. Now, not all digi makers permit digital coloring of their images, but I do as long as it's just for your personal use, or if you print it, you're going to make a handmade project after you print it out. So here's how you would bring a digi image into Procreate to color. First thing you want to do is click on the plus sign at the top right of your Procreate screen. As you can tell, we're in Procreate right now. And then we're going to go, I guess we'll start with a new canvas, but as you can see, I already have a digis set up. And you'll name it whatever you want to name it. I'll name mine Coloring Toot. And we're gonna switch it to inches instead of pixels. And I like to work in 8x10. But for Procreate, because I don't know why, but you have to make everything twice as big. So we're actually gonna do 16x20. And then when we're finished coloring, we'll resize it to 8x10. And then you want to make sure that your DPI is set to 300. And then you'll see your maximum layers are 14. So if you're not, like say if you work in Paint Shop Pro or Photoshop and you're used to having a million layers, this is something you will have to learn to do without in Procreate. So next we're going to click on Color Profile over on the left. And I just do a generic CMYK profile. And this is for anything you plan to color and then print out. If you're only making stuff for on-screen use, if you're only going to use it for digital scrapbooking or tagging or making Facebook covers or whatever, you can just click on RGB and then choose whichever. I don't use it. I use CMYK and I just use the generic profile. Then you don't have to worry about time-lapse settings. That's for if you want to do like speed videos or something, speed color videos of what you're doing in Procreate. But we're going to skip that and go to canvas properties. Now the background color is the color of the layer that you begin with. You never color on this layer. It's just a background color. And for me, I like to do either a medium gray or a medium brown, but you want a neutral color. And for this, we'll just stick with gray. And then you can click background hidden if you don't want a background to show at all, or, you know, check it off and you'll have your gray background. I feel like this is a little too green, so I'm going to move it around. Come back down. There we go. And I'm going to hit create. And here is our canvas. All right. So then you'll see up here, if you click on the two boxes up on the upper right corner of your screen, you'll see your layers. And you have that background layer we just created. And then you have the layer you can draw on. So just make sure that that's all how it's supposed to be there. And go into the wrench and go to canvas. Oh no, it's add. Go to add and do insert a photo. And then just go into your photos and pick your digi stamp. Now because I know a lot of people only sell JPEGs of their digital stamps or coloring pages, that's what I'm going to work with today, just to make it easy for you. But if you are using one of my PNG files, you won't have a white background on your image. Now let's just make him, you can click on any of these little corner dots and he will automatically, and just drag it to make him bigger, and it will if you keep it at uniform down here on the bottom, it's like clicked on the arrow, clicked on uniform, it'll keep it at scale, so he won't become deformed. So click the arrow to get out of that, and we're going to go over to the layer boxes, and you're going to click on the N, and we're going to scroll up until you see multiply. And as you see, the white background from the JPEG is gone. Now, when I color in Procreate, I like to turn the opacity of my line layer down to about 15. But you set it wherever you can still see it. Now, click on this plus sign above the layers, and you're going to hold your pencil on that new layer and drag it beneath your line layer. And this is going to be the flat color layer eventually, but for now we're using it for our clip masking. So just take a color, maybe a color that you're going to use in your coloring. And so since this is a fall gnome or an autumn gnome, I'm just going to pick a nice orangey color, and I'm going to click on the color palette, choose my color, and then drag it into the canvas with my pencil. And as you can see, we don't see our background, but that's okay. What we're going to do now is go back to layers, click over here on the where it says layer 1, just tap it with your pencil, and you'll get this dialog with a bunch of choices on it. What we're going to do is click on reference. Now we're going to click back on the layer we just filled in. And we're going to take the selection tool up here. It looks like an S. And we're going to go to automatic. And we're going to click outside of our gnome. So right here. And then click outside of that too. And then hit the wrench and cut. And now we have our flat color layer. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new layer right above our flat layer. And let's just name this flats. And this will help you keep up with your layers. And then just click anywhere else to get that out. Hit the plus sign to get your next layer. And again, we're going to click, I think you can click on the picture or on where it says layer 3. And we're going to choose clipping mask. And now, no matter where you color, you will only see it over our flat base layer. See? Now I'm going to tap to get rid of that. I don't know if it's a default setting. I think I did change some settings when I first got this, but for me, tapping with 2 fingers will undo, but you can always just use the little arrows down here. All right, so now we're on our first coloring layer, and this is where I just start filling in all of the flat colors. So let's give him a brown hat, and you can just adjust this with these little sliders, and you can do it all sorts of ways. I like the sliders, and I like classic, and classic might be easier for you, so we'll do it there. And you can just use your pencil to move it around until you find something you like, or you can adjust by hue, saturation, and value, HSV. And I want something a little bold. All right, we'll do this. Now I click on the brush tool and I go to painting, and I use the round brush. Since it was already selected, I didn't need to click on it. Normally you just click and it does that. But if you click it a second time, you'll get all these things, and we're not going to go into that today because that's just too much. All right, so I go to painting and I pick the round brush, and I'm going to make it a little bit big. All right, And I'm just going to start filling in the hat. Now I can see that I did not get all of the of that white outline when I went and erased. So here's what I'm going to go back down to the flats. I'm going to take an eraser. I'm going to have it set to round brush, same thing I'm using on the painting, and I'm just going to go in and erase this little line. This is why I prefer PNG files over JPEGs, because you get a much cleaner image with a PNG than you do with a JPEG. But for some reason, some people only use JPEGs, so I still provide them. Alright, as you can see, I took the hat color into the beard and into the leaf behind him, and you might think, oh, you should, that's going to be a whole bunch of cleanup later, but it's really not. The only thing here I would clean up is the leaf, because I will put that layer behind the hat. But the beard and his nose I will do in layers above the hat, so it's not necessary to clean it up because it will be covered. So let's just clean that little bit of paint or color that made it over the leaf, and then we'll move on to the next layer. So again, you hit the excuse me, we'll hit the plus sign up at the top of our layer boxes, click on layer, and click on clipping mask. And now let's do his beard. And I'm not going to use a basic white. I'm going to do, well, we'll start with white, but then we'll pull it down. We want it to be an off-white, because for me, I like to add the highlights later. So just pick an off-white that you like, and with the same paintbrush, just go in and color the beard. Now you want to zoom in, which you can do by putting 2 fingers together on the screen and then spreading them out, and zoom out by pulling them back in, like that. Alright, now we are going to make the paintbrush a little small so we don't go over the hat, and just sort of trace along the edge of the hat here. And as you can see, these are all just normal layers. I haven't added any filters or anything like that. And anywhere you might have gotten on the hat, just go in and clean up. Now, I know a lot of people think that, excuse me, digital painting is somehow so much faster or whatever, and like the program does all the magic for you. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending if you enjoy painting or not, it does not do all that for you. It does make things a little easier because you have undo and save and layers and everything, but it's not a miracle. It's not like Mid-Journey AI or anything where it's just drawing things. You put some words in and bam, you got an image. It doesn't work that way. You still have to take care. You still have to take your time. You still have to know how to use the tools. It's just, it's not some kind of miracle. It's not doing the work for you, I promise. It's doing some of the tedious stuff, but you still have to know some fundamentals of design and making artwork in order to be a digital artist. So you will see that. You probably, if you watched my drawing in Procreate video, you've probably seen some of that. And if you continue to watch this, you'll see some more. Right, I'm not worrying about going over his hand because his hand and his nose will be in a layer above this. So let's finish color. As you can see, I just sort of went along the edge. I'm going to finish filling in the bulk of the beard. And then I'm going to take my eraser and just clean up anything that would be behind the beard. Like his little shirt sleeve here. And the leaf he's sort of surfing. And this can get just as tedious and monotonous as drawing or coloring with color pencils or Copics. It's, you know, you still have to refine things by hand and everything else. But there are little bonuses. Just like every artistic medium has its pros and cons, digital painting is no different. Okay. I think I'm not going to worry about the shoes, and the shoes will definitely be an upper layer, I believe. I do want to get this little, oops, I'm going to make my paintbrush a little smaller and get this little area here. And then clean up the excess. Alright, so next let's work on his skin. And we'll make him a Caucasian gnome. And I'm just going to pick a peachy tone that I like. And then I'm going to go into the layers again. Whoops, hit the plus sign. Click on the icon, choose clipping mask, and then start on the skin. And again, I just sort of go along the edge here, like so. Being careful not to go into the beard or tidying up where I do. And you make the paintbrush a little bigger to fill in the nose or larger areas of the flesh. And then a little smaller to do the outlines, because we either make it neat now or we make it neat after. And don't forget, you can use your fingers on your iPad screen to turn the image around just like you would with paper to get a good angle when you're coloring. There we go. And then you just clean up any oopsies, like his thumb there. And there we go. We have his hat, beard, and flesh colored in. We're going to go back into the layer palette. We're going to add another layer. Click on the icon. Click on clipping mask. And we're going to pick a color for his shoes. Now, since his hat is like a burnt orange and the leaves are going to be oranges and reds and golds, I think I want to give him green shoes that'll kind of pop against the warmer tones, like the reds. But blue would also be good because there's a lot of orange. But we'll see. We'll start with green, and if I don't like it, I'll just change it. And that is one of the bonuses of working digitally, because you can just change it super easy. I don't know if I like this green. I like more of a, there we go. We'll do that. All right, we're on our shoe layer. We have our round brush from the painting section, and we're just gonna color this in. And again, I'm using a small brush size. I think it's at around 7%, just to get the perimeter colored in here with as little going into the beard as possible. And we're going to fill it in. I need to make it a little smaller to get up under the beard here. And then we're going to do the other boot. And I think I want this boot to go over the beard in this area. I wasn't sure, but now I've decided. Just outline the perimeter, make your brush a little bigger, and fill it in. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Okay, so now we've done all of the upper layers, and oh no, we didn't. I almost forgot his little outfit, his little sleeve there. So we'll keep this on the shoot layer because I just don't think it's necessary to make a whole nother one for just the sleeve, and we're going to flatten this soon. But I'm going to make his sleeve blue, and we're just going to come in, color that, being careful not to go over the hand or tidying up if we do. Same with the beard. And I'm going to make my paintbrush a bit smaller to get down into this little area. Alright, and now, oh, I see, I got a little bit on his hand, so I'm going to tidy that up. Whoop. And I think I'm going to add some flesh tone there. Okay. So we're going to combine these layers that we've just colored, but not the flats layer. So I'm going to click on layer 6 and hit merge down. Click on layer 5 there and hit merge down. Merge down, and now we have everything we've colored on this one layer. So click on your bottom layer, which I've named flats, add a new layer. You'll notice that you automatically get the little arrow over on the left of that layer. That means it already has clipping mask applied because you placed it above your flats layer and below another clipping mask. So now we're going to go in and we're going to pick some colors for the leaves that he is sailing on. And because I want to keep some unity in this image, I'm going to start with the color in his hat. Now, in order to get the color from his hat, all you have to do is hold your finger down on that, and it will automatically become your current color choice. Then I'm going to pull my paintbrush up and just start filling in all these leaves. And it might feel like you've got too much of this color at first, but we're going to add a bunch of different colors just to make these leaves really look like fall is here, and you know how beautiful the leaves are in the fall. Now, by doing that, I see where I missed another piece of that yucky JPEG. So we're going to go back down into the flats layer again and just erase with our eraser tool and make sure it's a little big and get that line out of here. Now, if you also want to do my little copyright here. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the layer we just filled in and hit the plus sign. So now we've got our line layer, which I will name lines. We've got the colors we've already done. We've got our flat layer, the color we just did on the leaves, and now we've added another layer. And we're just going to pick, for this particular picture, I'm going to pull this orange up to make it more saturated and a little lighter. And I'm going to go into paintbrush and I'm going to go to airbrushing and choose soft brush. And I'm going to keep the opacity around 60. And I'm going to make it a little big. And then remember that your Apple Pencil is pressure sensitive. So if you push down hard, you're going to get a big bold color. But if you go lightly, it's a softer color. See? And that's what we want to do. We want to keep it soft, and you can kind of keep it a little erratic if you are also doing fall leaves. All right? And we're just sort of creating a mottled texture on these leaves. All right, and then let's pick another color. Let's do some red, and we'll make it a little bigger. And let's pull some red in. We're working on the same layer because this is where we get more artistic and less regimented. Okay, I think I got it. Right? All right, I think this is coming out really cute. Now I want to do a darker red, so I'm going to pull the saturation down. That's the second bar from the top or bottom, I guess. And I'm going to pull the value down, so it's also darker. All right, and then we're going to make this a little smaller, not a lot. We'll make our brush just a little smaller and kind of bring this in just along the edges. And while you are probably coloring something else, because I have not even released this image yet, anything you want to have a lot of different colors, a lot of colorful richness and depth, this is how you would do it. You would use a soft brush and just add the color very loosely. Loose is important with color because that's how we get it. It's how we create rich and, gosh, I don't know the words, but very depthful and or deep. I don't know what you would say there. Anyway, so we're going to add some red there. And now we're going to bring a pop of green. And I like green yellow. And I probably want it to be a little bit less saturated and a little bit darker. And I'm going to merge all these reds and oranges we did. I'm going to click on the icon and merge down. And then I'm going to add a new layer. And I'm using the same soft brush from the airbrushing section. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And we're just going to pull the green through little specks here and there. Right? Alright. Not too much. We don't want too much. Maybe we'll make both these little leaves green. That's nice. I think I want more on this leaf. Right, because we don't want them, I don't know. I like this. I think I'm happy here. And I'm going to merge this down. We're going to go back into layers, click on the icon with the green we just did, and merge down. Now the next thing we're going to do is add a new layer. And, okay, yeah, we'll add a new layer, and let's do a darker green just under him, like right in this area, sort of like a shadow. All of our tools are exactly the same, and maybe a little bit back here behind his hat because we want to really separate that orange of his hat. And I think I might want to add some of this green to his to his boots or maybe his sleeve there. So let's merge the green down into the leaves. And because this is basically all of our flats, we'll merge everything down to the flats section. And then we're going to add another layer. And then we're going to click on the icon and hit clipping mask. And let's just see what it looks like if I make this brush kind of small. And we'll just add a little bit of this green. We'll add some in his sleeve, and we'll add a little bit in his shoes as well, but not too much because we don't want it to get lost with the leaf. Now you can barely see this now, but once we start adding shadows and stuff, you'll probably see it a little better. We'll add a little bit to his hat over here, and a little bit in his flesh through here. You know, we just don't want totally flat colors on this guy. We want him to have some richness and depth, right? And then we'll certainly add, and I'm using very light pressure with this green right now, we'll add some green to his beard, right? Okay, now what I want to do is take the smudge tool. That's the little finger point next to the paintbrush. It is also on soft brush, which you would also find in airbrushing. I'm going to make the opacity about 40, and I'm going to size it to about 13% and just sort of make this make all this extra green I've added on his flesh and beard and his clothing and stuff softer. Now you could achieve that with just the airbrush tool by lowering the opacity even further, but I don't know, I like going in later and doing it like this. Now the next thing I want to do is pull some of this red out of the leaves, and I've just held my finger down on the leaf at the reddish color I like, and I'm going to add another layer. Also make that a clipping mask, and with the same airbrush tool I'm going to go in and add some of this red to his flesh, to his hat, and his shoes, his sleeve. We're just going to add a little bit throughout. Right, and this is just sort of to help, not exactly with realism, but to bring all of the colors in this image together a little more. Now, since I used the blue on his sleeve, I think I am going to add one more layer, also make it a clipping mask, and let's pull some of that blue out of his sleeve, which it's now kind of gray, but that's okay. And just add a little bit of it on his hands. No, I'm not liking that actually. We'll do it here, under his hat, under his nose, sort of like a shadow. In fact, maybe we'll just use this color as the shadows. So let's do this. That layer we just made, and we colored with this blue gray on, hit normal, and then hit the end and go up to multiply, and we're going to leave it at full opacity. And this is where we start adding our shading, and I'm still using the airbrush tool, and I'm just adding shadows where I like shadows. You certainly want a shadow under him and on the leaf. We want a shadow under where his hat and beard meet, under his nose, on his sleeve, behind his shoe, right? And it might feel too dark right now, but don't worry, we're going to fix that with the smudge tool in a minute. do some on the leaf. And I'm not really, you know, coloring and creating what you want in coloring takes practice and experience. So I can only really show you how I do it. You have to actually try different things and see what works out best for you. I watched and read so many tutorials in all of the years that I've been digital painting, and I learned a little bit and sometimes a lot from all of them. But in the end, I had to use what worked best for me and just keep the rest sort of in mind in case something came up that I thought it would be useful for. So I've gone in and added shadows where I wanted shadows. And now I'm going to go in and take that smudge tool and just sort of soften them up. Same settings that we used it last time. And I'm just sort of running it over the edges of where I just colored. All right, we don't want any hard edges on these shadows. That's not really, that doesn't work for my styles in particular. There are plenty of styles where you do like hard edges on your shadows though. So again, it's one of those things where you have to work it, try different lessons, tutorials, see what you like the best, what works best for you. But I like soft coloring. That's sort of my preference right now. I do go through phases where I want to do other things, but right now I like this. And also, this is just our first layer of shading. We'll do more detailed shading in the next layer. So I think I like this. What I do want to do is go through with the eraser, set to round brush, make it pretty small, and I just want to go along like the edges of the fingers, anywhere where it seems like your image has gotten lost in the shadows, where you want something to stand out a little better, like his hand here. And I specifically like to go along the edges, like so. And we'll do it over here on this hand as well. And along his nose. And remember, this is just the eraser tool. Let's take that smudge tool again, and we're going to make the size pretty small, and we're just going to blend the edge out a little bit. Like I said a minute ago, I like soft coloring. But we don't want to make it so blurred that you lose it in the shadows all over again. So keep that in mind. Alright, now let's take the eraser tool and go along the perimeter of his beard. And I'm not necessarily doing the entire perimeter. I'm just kind of going where I think it looks best or makes the most sense, maybe. Maybe do a little bit of highlights in the beard with this as well. And then we'll do the same thing with the shoes. The sleeve. And the hat. Alright, and anywhere where you feel like it's not soft enough, take that smudge tool and just blend it out. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to do the leaves in the back. And when you're doing, whoop, go to the eraser tool. When you're doing leaves, I like to do the edges, but also along the little veins. Not necessarily all of them, but any that have gotten lost in the shadows. I don't like that. There we go. Do the veins. Okay, and then we'll do the same on all these other leaves. Like so, and there we go. So now what we'll do is we'll do another layer of shadows. So we'll go into layers, hit the plus sign, click on the icon, choose clipping mask, hit the N, scroll up to multiply, and we're going to close it. Go back over here. We're going to keep this the soft brush, but we're going to make it small. And this is where we go in, whoop, needs to be a little smaller than that, and start doing more of the harsher shadows, I guess. And these are going to be smaller, they won't take as much space, but they're also going to be darker. So you won't blend this quite as much as you did the last shadow layer. Or smudge it, I guess, is how I should say that. I think of it as blending, but I'm using the smudge tool, so. And you're really just applying this layer of shadow to the very darkest spots. Certainly under his feet and his beard on the leaf would be a dark, one of the darker spots. And because the leaves are the background, we're really not going to do too much detail shading with them. The shadows on the leaves are really just from where the gnome interacts with the leaves, not so much to give them a form. Since they're background parts, they're really not the focus, so we don't need them to be too detailed. You know, the thing when you make the image too busy is it sort of confuses the viewer's eyes. And that's not what, there's certainly artwork that is intended to do that, but that's not what we're doing with this little gnome on the leaf. He's not political or profound in any way. He's just a little sweetheart flying around on some cool autumn leaves in his magical little gnomey way. Right? We love you, Gnome. He's so cute. I love Tomty gnomes. I think they're adorable. I'm taking the smudge tool, and I'm going to make the smudge brush a little bigger. I'm making about 4%, and I'm just going to blend the very, very edges so we get softness, but we don't lose too much of that darkness and depth. Yes, I love the gnomes. I collect the Tomty gnomes, and I was so heartbroken when I went to Aldi the other day, and they had all these fall and Halloween gnomes. And just about all of the Halloween gnomes were gone, and I did not have enough money to get all of them, which is what I wanted to do. But I did get a witch one, and that made me pretty happy. He's super cute. But I was like, okay, I'm coming back next grocery day, and I am getting me another one. And I had hoped I would be able to get like 2 Halloween gnomes and 2 fall gnomes. I keep fall gnomes up all year. I keep most of them up all year. Like I have Valentine and summer gnomes, and they just sort of sit on my shelf all year round. But I went back on my next grocery day, and literally every single gnome was gone. Every single one. And then I was standing in the grocery line, and I saw 2 Halloween gnomes. One of them I didn't even see when I was there before. On a checkout, like 3 lanes down. And so I asked the lady, I was like, are those 2 for sale? And she said, are they yours? I said, no, I just wanted to know if they were available to purchase because I want to purchase them. And she said, oh no, they've already been paid for. And all I could think was, how was that Halloween gnome right there already paid for when he wasn't here when I was here before? But okay, whatever. Actually, I'm pretty happy for whoever did get it because it was really cute. The one that I saw down there, and it was holding like a little sign that said boo, and it was just adorable. But I'm going to keep checking in. You never know. They might restock or something. And so, but I do have my one witch gnome, and that makes me pretty happy. And then I have a few other Halloween gnomes, but these, I've kind of gotten into a thing with the Aldi gnomes. I call them the Aldi gnomes. All right, I'm liking this pretty good. What do you guys think? I want to pull some of this shadow down a little more. And I think he needs some more shadow through here. And I'm just using the same brush I used when I add the rest of the shadows, and I'm giving his gnomey beard a little more depth, right? And I'm gonna blend it. I'm gonna blend these a little more because they're not really meant to be deep shadows. They're just shadows in areas where I noticed some shadows would be nice. And I definitely want to add more around his hands. So when you're coloring, part of adding shadows or color choices is really separating objects to create that 3-dimension, so we can see that his hand is not just like a part of the beard. We can see it's in front of the beard. So it's important to separate the darkness of the shadows from the value of his hand. And we're going to do that a little more in a minute when we start working on highlights. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of shadow on this leaf down here, and I'm going to make the brush a little bigger. I just feel like this leaf is kind of looking super flat. And maybe a little bit over here. I don't know. A little bit over here. Okay. Now I'm liking this. We're going to go back to the eraser tool, and we're going to clean up any lights that we created on our last shadow layer that we might have lost when we just added the more detailed shadowing. And we're doing it exactly the same way that we did it last time. Just taking the eraser through, cleaning it up, smudge it where it seems too harsh. But for the most part, I think I like this as it is. Not too much to erase here. Especially because we will go in and add sort of a highlights layer in a minute. But I mostly want to make sure that our light areas are separate from our dark areas, and that way things can stand out. Alright, so we have, let's go into our layers. We have our line layer, we have 2 shadow layers, we have 2 color depth layers, and we have our flat layer. So I'm going to merge these color depth layers into the flat layer. And I think I want to add some more red, more blush to his nose and hands. So I've added another layer above the flats. It will automatically get the arrow to show that it's a clipping mask. I'm going to close the layer dialog box. And I'm going to go pick this pretty bright red that I used in the leaves. I'm going to make sure I'm on soft brush. And I'm going to make it a little big, not too big. And I'm just going to add more of this rosy color. Right, he's getting kind of flat. I'm going to make the brush smaller for his fingertips. Right, a little bit on his hand here. I just, you know, we don't want basic flat colors because that's kind of boring, right? Go to the smudge tool and soften the edges of that red we just used, right? And I think I might pull some of this yellowish green out of the leaf, maybe an orangey color. Yeah, let's go with this light orange. I'm going to add another layer and just add a little bit around on his flesh. We want to brighten this up a little. Okay, so I think I like what I've got here. I'm going to merge the red and orange I just added. And then we're going to merge our shadows down. Right? And here's what we have. Now, above the flats layer, I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to click on the icon, make it a clipping mask, and I'm going to go over and just pick, let's try a yellow. We'll do like a bright lemony yellow. And with soft brush still, we're going to go in and add some highlights. So we're on the new layer, click on N, and go down to add. And then you're going to probably want to pull this down a bit to like 50. So we have new layer above our flats layer. We've made it a clipping mask. You can tell by the little arrow. We've made it an add layer here. We've chosen a yellow, and we've brought our airbrush down, our soft brush, airbrush brush. Anyway, we brought that down a bit, and we're just going to start lightly adding some highlights. And remember, you want to be, you want to have sort of a soft touch with this because this is light in its purest form we're playing with, right? We want his skin to sort of glow. So I did a little circle on his nose. I kind of went along the perimeter a little bit. Add a little bit at the tips of his fingers. That'll help his hands not blend too much into the background. And, you know, don't be afraid to make your brush smaller when you get into these tiny spots. I change the size of my brushes so much as I am working. And you will too once you get the hang of it and you are comfortable with Procreate. You'll notice that you change your brush sizes a lot. Okay, so now his skin is really popping. I think it looks very, very good. What I'm going to do now is maybe make my brush pretty small. Oh, 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I got a phone call. Anyway, so now what I want to do is make my brush pretty small. We're still using the soft brush, airbrush. And I'm just going to go around and add a little bit more light to these leaves. Like I said before, we don't want to get too crazy detailing these leaves because they are a background image. And so I'm not sure. I'm just going to try this out, see how I like it, probably smudge it a bit, and then decide if I keep it or not. So I'm just going to do that little bit. I'm going to soften it up, see how I feel about it, and I'm not liking it. So let's undo. I do like this. So I'm not gonna I think I've decided I'm not gonna do the little veins with this, but I will do the big vein in the center. And I'm, like I've said before, you want to do a very light pressure. And I'm just gonna do sort of the rounded edges of the leaves here. Right. Okay, I do think I like this a little better. Maybe I will pull a little bit into these veins here. Oy. As you can see, it can still be a struggle when you're working with a digital medium. It's not a miracle cure. It doesn't all of a sudden make everything you try to do perfect. It's all practice and patience. Okay, so I think I like that, so I'm just going to go very lightly over each vein in this leaf and then blend it to use the smudge brush to soften it up a bit where it needs to be softened, like that right there. A little too bright and bold. I think smudging the edges, like the tips of the lines as they're going away from the gnome, is probably the best way to keep these lines good and soft and pretty. And then as they're closer to the gnome, you kind of want to blend it out until you don't see them anymore because the shadows would cover them. Right. And then I'm just going to do some little dot sparkles on these other leaves, varying my pressure. I'm just doing the rounding edges of this stuff. And that main vein. Little dots on these tiny ones. There we go. And then same again. And I'm definitely going to blend out this. That's way too bright to be behind him. It's distracting, you know. So we'll smudge that out. Alright, let's see. Let's add a little more glitter to this here. We'll add a little glitter to all these little leaves. Don't go too crazy with it, because it can be distracting. In fact, I'm going to go in and blend these a little bit so they're not. Blend these glitters on this leaf below him, like below the leaf he's riding, a little bit, And then I'm gonna just add a little bit of outlining here. Now, if you use a pale yellow in your image and it doesn't look right, just keep trying different light colors for your ad layer, because I don't know the science behind it, but sometimes the color will look good and sometimes it won't. Let's add some more glitters to these leaves, little sparkly sparklers. There we go, pretty. I love sparkly stuff. I don't know about you. So when I can add some sparkle, I generally will. And because gnomes are magical little men, of course they live in a land where the leaves sparkle. Right? Don't worry, these glitters do not harm the environment, so they're awesome. Alright, add some sparkly glitters to the leaf he's riding on. And all I'm doing is tapping with the pencil, using more or less pressure to make brighter and duller dots. And I'm just being very random about where they're placed. Right? You can zoom out and have a look and see what it looks like, and then zoom back in and add some more. Right? And we don't, just like the highlights, we don't want any glitters in the shadows under him, because the way you see sparkles is from light reflecting. It's a light reflection, so it doesn't make sense for them to be too much in the shadows. But these are fantasy creatures, so they can be, you can do whatever you want. Now, I'm not going to add sparkles to his shoes, as tempting as it is, but I am going to just make them stand out a little better. In fact, I'm going to blend what I just did there on his shoes. Right? Make my airbrush a little bigger so we can do a nice little glow here, you know, just a little one. All right, and let's see, let's do something with his hat. Let's take this little side and just run that right along the edges there. And don't worry if it's too bold, because we can go in and blend it. And you probably want to make your brush tool a little bigger for this. I know, like you're coloring the same thing, but for bigger areas with bigger highlights, you want to use a bigger smudge tool. And for smaller areas with smaller highlights, you want to use a smaller smudge tool. And that pretty much applies with everything. So, like I said, I do a lot of changing the size of things when I am coloring digitally. Alright, I think, oh, you know what? We need to add some highlights to his beard. What was I thinking? I don't like that one. Let's start over here where it's very obvious where the darks and lights are. And I'm sorry about all the dinging. Somebody is messaging me, and I always forget to turn silent mode on when I'm recording, because I don't get time to record very much. I'm very busy. So we're just going to have to deal with it and hope nobody calls again, because that was annoying. Huh? Pretty annoying. Who here likes talking on the phone nowadays? I think even when I was a kid, like, you know how everybody assumes teenage girls just love yakking on the phone, and it was just never my thing. I'm like, okay, where are we meeting up? Let's meet up, hang out, have fun. I don't want to sit on the phone all day. The only exception, of course, was boys, because I was boy crazy. Alright, so I've added highlights all throughout his beard. I'm going to soften any areas that look kind of yucky, like that right there. I don't know. I didn't like how that came out. We'll do some here. Just salt. I guess I'm going to soften them all up a bit. And I'm going to call that done, I think. Yeah, so the only thing I think I want to do, let's merge this down into the flat layer. Let's add another layer and drag it below the flats. And then let's just give him a cute blue sky, or kind of a blue-gray sky, because it is fall. And I don't know about where you live, but where I live, that means gray skies everywhere. So, and let's just give him a pretty blue circle background. Very easy. I'm using the same soft brush I've been using. Same opacity. I'm just making it a little bigger and doing a little circle. And it looks so cute. But I realize that it doesn't feel centered now that I've put the circle behind it. So I'm going to click on layer. I'm going to drag right. I'm going to drag all of my layers right. I'm going to click on the arrow. I'm going to make sure it's on uniform. And I'm just going to scoot it over until it feels more centered. And voila! We have an adorable gnome flying on a beautiful autumn leaf colored in Procreate. If you have any questions, just ask in the comments. I prefer if you ask in the comments. That way if someone else has the same question, they can find it there. And I will answer as soon as I see it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry I don't get to update this channel very much. I'm just super busy. But I definitely will add as time permits. And I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe, like if you liked. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.